Thank you very much, Alan. That's such an encomium that I can't possibly do anything except refute it. But still, I'm going to just introduce a few thoughts about smiling. My title comes from Milton's Paradise Lost, in which he is describing the love growing between Adam and Eve in paradise, and their communication to each other through smiling. And he says at one stage, "Smiles from reason flow, to brute denied, and are of love the food." In other words, we, reasoning, self-conscious beings, can smile. Animals can't. And because we can smile, we feed our mutual love on that activity. This is our way. This is a way in which love grows between people. And I think this is an extremely interesting observation, very relevant to our topic. It suggests that smiling is a relation between subjects. We already, in a little panel discussion, raised this question of what the self is, and the idea that the self is that aspect of the human being which is connected with subjectivity, being a subject as opposed to an object, having a point of view on the world as opposed to being merely one item among others in the world. Those are all difficult philosophical ideas, and I can't say that they've ever been explained to anyone's satisfaction, but nevertheless, we instinctively understand them. We understand that words like I and you are, as it were, singling us out from the ordinary flow of nature and putting us into a different light. We already had a little example of it with the famous poem by Rückert, set by Schubert, "Du bist die Ruhe, die Sehnsucht du." Die Sehnsucht du und was sie stillt. You are the calm. It's addressed to the you, and as though she, through being the object of his love, has stood out from everything. She is the cause of everything in him and also the thing that fulfills it. And of course Schubert's setting makes it very clear that this is a very special thing. This isn't something that can even be described from the third person point of view. It has to be described from the first or the second person. Now, smiling is a very interesting thing. It's something that we do. And I think we should distinguish smiling as a general feature of the human face from smiling at things. The word "at" is an extremely difficult one to understand. What is the difference between just smiling and smiling at someone? It doesn't mean that there is somebody that you're actually smiling at. There might be nobody there, but you could still be smiling at them because you think they're there. You've made a mistake. You can be smiling at an invisible person or someone in your memory. So this word "at", it has that peculiar feature that philosophers call intentionality, the feature of being directed outwards without necessarily finding a target. As it were, creating a space in the world into which something else can fit, even if there is nothing there to fit. And this means that there is a possibility of error. You can smile in error. You smile at the wrong person, and perhaps your life could depend on that. There are a lot of errors like this, which I shall refer to later. The possibility of error is one of the things that distinguishes our states of mind from most of the states of mind that animals have. Because we build on our states of mind a conception of the world and try to make ourselves part of that conception. So we've been talking about the selfie idea, which always seems to involve smiling. At least people say that, smiling at a camera in this way. This is the cheese idea. You can't stand before a camera without distorting your face in this way. No small animal could confront this without fear. It is not, if you take it back to its biological origin, this is clearly one of the things that condemns our species. or ought to condemn it to extinction. But nevertheless, for some reason, we feel that this is absolutely necessary, especially when confronted by a mere machine. This isn't establishing any relationship with anybody, but we think of it, or at least the people who do this, they think of it as showing themselves as in some way agreeable, harmless. We're not a threat. We're a threat to rabbits and so on, but we're not a threat to our fellow human beings. But even politicians now have to appear with a smile. And all photographs, all their public photographs are smiling photographs. But are they really smiling at anything? And is it in fact a smile if you're not actually smiling at something other than a camera? I think most of us would think that for the ordinary politician, smiling is a way of avoiding people rather than relating to them. It's a way of pulling a veil over your face, which represents you as something generally agreeable, but nevertheless not to be interrupted. This is a very new thing, that photographs have to do this. The old idea of a photographic portrait was that you sat in a dignified way, properly dressed, in order to represent yourself as a citizen, as somebody who's got a position in life. Here is an example. We all know this is how people used to sit for photographs. They're not pretending to a relation with the camera, still less with the person behind it. And obviously there's very little relation to each other. They're representing the ordinary disaster of an ordinary human life. Here we are. I'm sorry, we didn't manage, but there it is. So you're making the best of your social meaning, but retreating from any kind of encounter. There's no I to you encounter there. And in the modern world, we don't have anything quite like this. Because we're always looking at the camera, we can't actually present those socially informed postures. We're always directing ourselves towards the camera. So if we want to be serious, or look as though we've got something to offer, it's usually a pout rather than a smile, and it tends to have an aggressive or sexual meaning, like this. The pout in the world of the model and the pop star. This is we find the non-smiling photo, but his meaning is usually slightly threatening, also sexual, and only young people can get away with it. Obviously, pop groups this is their normal posture. This is how they relate to the world, those are, in a way, sincere expressions. They're sincere expressions of their music, not necessarily of the people who produce it. So let's go back to smiles. So there are two kinds of smiling. In other words, there's smiling in general, of which smiling into a camera might be an example, and smiling at someone. Even animals can seem to be smiling in general, and people often think of animals in that way. This is obviously not distinguishable from that selfie we started with, really. But of course this dog isn't smiling at another person, nor is it understood as smiling. And people are aware of this, so that they kind of paint smiles onto their pets' faces in this sort of way. As is obvious from that picture, that is the best that an animal can do by way of smiling, and it's not smiling at anything. And we can paint a smile on our face in that way as well. And this sort of thing is, it certainly doesn't endear the wearer of the makeup to anyone, but it is something that people sometimes get involved in. So what then did Milton mean by saying that smiles from reason flow? I think this picture is so horrible, I better go on to the next one anyway. Right, this is an angel from the cathedral at Reims, the smiling angel who is carrying the blessing of the Almighty to the world in general. Now, is that a real smile? This is something which I think is worth thinking about. What Milton meant was that the smile that Adam and Eve confer on each other, the smiles that they confer on each other, are part of their interpersonal relation, part of the way that they look at each other, and where from their looks there grows the love between them. Now, I think there's looking at another person is a very also extremely interesting phenomenon. All animals with eyes look at things. They look at things to gather information. And they respond to the changes in information in their environment. But there's another kind of looking which they can't or don't seem to be able to do, which is looking into another person's eyes. A lot of people imagine that their dog is looking into their eyes when it's eager for food or whatever, and they do have some that penetrating way of addressing you. But they're not looking into your eyes in the way that you look into the eyes of someone you love, in order to communicate with them the fact that you love them. This looking into another is a very strange phenomenon. John Donne describes it when he describes him and his mistress sitting looking at each other, that our eye beams twisted and did thread our eyes upon one double string. That thought of just sitting face to face, looking into each other's eyes, and there growing between you the sense of belonging. When you're looking into someone's eyes in that sense, you're not like an optician looking with a little torch to see if there's some damage to the retina or anything like that. There's nothing you're trying to see, no object you're trying to see, but that's the crucial thing. There's no object you're trying to see, so what are you trying to see? It's the subject. It's the thing that you can't see because it's not part of the objective world. It's that point of view on the world which looks from these eyes at you, but looks from a place that is not in the world. That is the peculiar mystery, and it's why people who look into each other's eyes in this way can't stop doing it, because the thing that they're looking at isn't there. And yet it is there looking back at them. So there's a peculiar kind of metaphysical queasiness that comes out of this, and you've got to be fit for it. Looking into someone's eyes requires a certain kind of metaphysical strenuousness. You're looking at the gaze of the other. There's a very eloquent moment in Das Rheingold by Wagner, in which, as those of you who are properly educated will know, the giants have been given the gold of the Nibelung in exchange for the contract that they had to have the goddess of love, Freya. And they build up this pile of gold in front of her, and if she is hidden from them, then they will agree to take the gold instead of her. But there's a little crack through which Fasolt, who loves her dearly, can still see her gaze. Still her eye falls upon him. Her Blick, as you say in German. Therefore he can't accept the substitute. But there is one thing that can be put in to fill that gap, which is the ring on Wotan's finger, the ring of which is the subject of the whole drama, which was the thing given in exchange for renouncing love. So it's the only thing that can be a price of love. So that is put on the pile to fill up this hole. In other words, the glance of Freya is the thing which contains the essence of her lovableness. Right. So, and I think most people recognise that there is something here which we all respond to, of great importance for the drama of erotic feeling. Right, so, but nevertheless, sincere smiles, this is when I get onto this angel, a sincere smile, although it's smiling at someone, is not necessarily voluntary. In fact, it shouldn't be entirely voluntary. It has to have an element of involuntariness, and it's a bit like blushing. Milton could have said that blushes from reason flow, and are of love the food. They are also to brutes denied. Although animals that are fortunate enough to have translucent skin can flush, like our pigs used to, whenever given sufficient claret, they would flush beautifully, but they weren't blushing. Blushing is something that only a self-conscious being can do, but a blush is an involuntary thing. You can't do it deliberately. This is a very strange thing. There are a lot of things like that, especially in the face, which are revelations of self-consciousness, even though they have to be involuntary to be so. And a smile is like that. A real smile is called forth from you by the other. It's not something that you go and put on for him. If you're doing that, there's something already that is wrong with the relationship, or you're claiming a kind of superiority which you shouldn't be claiming. So it's the self-conscious eye that appears in the smile, the smiling at things. It's the light from within. I think Julian said some things in the conversation about this, whether there was a light that came from the eye, and Ray Tallis backed off the idea of any scientific explanation of this. Of course there's no scientific explanation. We're not talking about objects, we're talking about subjects. There isn't anything that radiates, there's no thing that radiates from the eyes when you confront in those eyes the subject whose eyes they are, because the subject isn't there. So there's a very great difficulty, therefore, of capturing a smile in art. The real smile is called forth by its object. It is a summons of the self into the eye and into the face. So the smiling angel at Reims is bestowing a general smile on the world. And can we really believe it? I've seen this used in an advert. Someone saying, would you buy a second-hand car from this guy, claiming to be a better dealer in the, and of course there is something very beautiful about this, undoubtedly, but it's a little bit like that moment in the Schiller Ode to Joy when he cries, "Seid umschlungen Millionen," millions of you be embraced. How can there be such a command? And Beethoven makes sense of it, of course, but only in his naive way. Now, I want to give you one rare example of success in portraying a real smile in art. And this is Rembrandt's mother. Of course, this is a million miles from the selfie. All the norms of the selfie are here violated. There's every sign of a real and lifelong devotion, of suffering overcome and rewarded, and yet in this old, pinched, drained face there's this little smile still there for her son, in which is, her whole being radiates. There's a kind of pride in her as well. So here is a very good example of somebody capturing, as Rembrandt always did, in the very flesh of someone, the selfhood that's embodied in it. That, I think, illustrates for me what I'm trying to say about the smile. And I'll rush on now just to finish what I have to say. Back to Milton. Milton is emphasizing the fact that we smile at the other person. We don't smile at the other person's face, because that would be to mock him. If I smiled at your face, that isn't the same as smiling at you. If you like, I'm smiling through your face. This is an example of the way in which one and the same physical relation between people might actually belong to two quite different worlds. You can imagine someone smiling at another person's face for whatever reason, ironically, dismissively, whatever, and someone smiling at the other person in his face or through his face. It's as though something is revealed in that face that doesn't actually belong there, nor does it belong anywhere else. And the same is true of kissing. You can kiss the face before you, like as you might kiss the bishop's ring, or whatever. Or you can kiss the other in her face. The kiss is a kind of summons. Very good example of this, we've referred to Dante before, but the very obvious example is that of Paolo and Francesca in the fifth book of the Inferno, where she says, reading this naughty book together, and she reads of the smile of Guinevere kissed by such a man, And then she thinks of her own smile, and suddenly Francesco, Paolo rather, sorry, is upon her, and it's his mouth pressed onto hers. La bocca mi baciò tutto tremante. His mouth trembling against hers, and she falls into a different condition. She becomes flesh suddenly, having thought about a smile. I've got a picture of that. It's a really nice 19th century picture by Cassoli. And I think most people know this story, beautifully presented, of course, by Tchaikovsky in a tone poem, by Rachmaninoff in an opera, and so on. So she falls and becomes flesh. And, you know, kisses are like that. They are also on the verge between being relations between flesh and relations between subjects. The I of the one person meeting the you of the other. Sartre says that in the erotic caress, we are incarnating the other person into her flesh. We are, as it were, making that subjective point of view part of what we touch, and yet it can't be part of what we touch because it belongs to the nothingness of the self. But this means that there's an intentionality about kisses too. There can be mistaken kisses. Lucretia, when she kisses the man who comes suddenly back from the battlefield thinking it's Tarquin, think it's her husband, suddenly discovers that he's Tarquin, the rapist. You know, that was a mistaken kiss she gave him, and so on. So there's always, in these things like smiling and kissing and touching and so on, there's always this anxiety that what we intend as a relation between subjects, between I and you, might suddenly fall into a relation between objects. And I think most of us are aware of this now because of the growing culture of pornography and so on all around us, that somehow we're being invited to see these relations merely as relations of things and objects, and the fall into the world of things from the world of the I and the you. So back to smiles. A few final thoughts. There are obviously lots of different types of smile. There is the ordinary day-to-day smile of the transaction. When you're working, shopping, opening yourself to negotiation, it's better if you smile, and you do smile spontaneously. Your smile is called forth by the person on the other side of the counter as you hand over the money and she hands over the eggs or whatever it might be. These are honest, good-natured smiles, but they are also part of a transaction. Not like the smile of Rembrandt's mum, which was a gift smile, something given for free. The selfie smile isn't given, nor is it part of a transaction. It's a way of making the self look harmless, but also vanishing behind the smile, so that you're not accused of anything. The smiles in that sense become kind of mask, not like the theatre mask, which has to be read, but a kind of veil, and that I think is what we are seeing. One of the results of the selfie culture is the growth of the smile. It's not just the selfie, but the whole culture of harmlessness that we're being encouraged to engage in. That smiles are a kind of a mask that we learn to wear in order to deflect any challenge. So that we hide our face behind our smile. But at the same time, the face for us is absolutely vital to the society and the culture in which we've been raised. We've been raised in a face-to-face society, one in which we do stand before each other, revealing the self in the face. And that's something that we think we must do, and it's second nature to us to do it. The selfie is perhaps a way in which that has just propagated itself spontaneously. However, it's not only people who reveal their faces who do it. As you see, there is such a thing as the selfie where there is no face to be observed. This, I think, is one of the things that we now have to take into account. What is the concept of the self which is being rehearsed and rejoiced in here? You know, the entry of the veil into the life of Europe has been one of the most troubled developments in recent years. What has it done to us? The fact that we, who related to each other by looking into each other's eyes and smiling into each other's faces, have suddenly found ourselves surrounded by people whom we cannot see. Inevitably, we are alarmed by this, by the fact that this whole process of becoming a self in relation to others has been compromised by the presence among us of people who are resolutely private, even though they are in the public sphere. And I think that is one of the things that perhaps we should be thinking about. Now, that's enough of me. I'll hand over to Wolfgang now. Thank you.
Hi, Roger. So you spoke a little bit about, I feel as though you imply that a very sharp distinction between the universal and the particular, and individuality and the universal. I'm over here.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to quote Alan Bloom to you, which I know I've already exhausted you with in various previous interviews. But Alan Bloom writes the following. He writes, "A man who can generate images of a cosmos and ideals by which to live is a genius, a mysterious demonic being. Such a man's greatness, a work of art, is himself. He who can take his person, a chaos of impressions and desires, a thing whose very unity is doubtful, and to give it order and unity is a personality." And I'm wondering whether, do you think that modern trends such as, whether it's contemporary art or instant communication, fail to give us authentic self-expression precisely because the concept of narrative has broken down, and because we, not only do we not attempt personality, but we don't even have a basic concept of what that would represent, to be a unified self with a certain narrative and a personified story to tell?
Well, obviously that illustrates what Ian was saying yesterday about cultural pessimism. It's not universally true that people don't have a coherent narrative or are not capable of creating that narrative in modern circumstances. My life it's not a coherent narrative, but it's interestingly incoherent. And I've clung to it over the years, and here I am. And I think we go on. It may be the case that if you just leave behind you through life scattered images of moments that you've forgotten, and they're only there on a camera, that there is something like a breakdown of the narrative which constitutes your being. But I'm not sure. You see, one way of solving the whole problem of existence is to live a life of religious piety, like a monk. You say the same prayers morning and night. Each day has the same rhythm. All you have is the memorized words, the chants, the holy text. And that's a narrative, and that's available to anyone at any time, and it's still available today. I think there are some people here on this island engaged in that, and yet we branch away from that. We think, no, that's inadequate for let's say we adventurous people and unbelievers and so on. So we go out and create another narrative, and we have to make the parts of it fit together, and they don't always fit together. But I don't think people in previous epochs were any better positioned to do this than we are. It's up to us.
Roger.
Where am I? Oh, yeah.
But don't you think, for sort of the question of self-expression in the age of instant communication, that most people, and now we know about most people because have a huge, vast sort of web like Facebook or Twitter or anything. Most people aren't artists nor philosophers nor writers, but they still feel like they need to express themselves in some way, and they haven't been blessed with certain talents to be able to express themselves, say, in draw a self-portrait, or say to write a lovely poem, or to write a good story. So the only way they can express themselves to their friends, or self-expression, is purely through a selfie and purely through their own little status, like, oh, I woke up this morning and I had cheese and toast because I was hungover. But surely that has as much worth as anyone who is blessed with creative talents or intellectual talents. Like, why is there so much scrutiny over someone who has to work day in, day out as a dustman, or what have you, as a nurse, or what have you? Why is there so much scrutiny over those people who try to self-express themselves, who haven't been blessed with such a talent?
Yeah. All that is perfectly legitimate point to make. I wasn't really making that point, though, or the opposite of it. I mean, I was trying to say that that smiles have a different significance when you're smiling at someone and creating a relationship through that smile than they have when you're looking into a camera and saying cheese. And I was trying to explain why these are different things, and why smiling at is a peculiarly human thing, and why it presents us with this great question of what kind of thing we are. What is it to be a subject in a world of objects? It may be that the selfie is a cure for certain lacks, or another way of relating to the world. That could be so.
I'll just, I've got the microphone, so I'll start here anyway. The smiles from reason flow, I don't remember the context in Milton well enough, but the thing it brings to mind for me is this, the question of the connection between smiles and laughter, and then the incongruity theory of laughter, which suggests that only humans can laugh because only humans have the reason to identify incongruities. This means that animals can't laugh, and also God can't laugh because nothing can be incongruous to God. Yeah. And so I wondered what you thought the connection between smiling and more advanced forms of laughter, and even comedy then, might be. And I wondered, that's a much less romantic view of what is going on when we smile than the one you gave us. But I did wonder if your more metaphysical view could be bolstered by thinking that part of what we do when we smile is recognize this incongruity between our encountering each other as subjects as opposed to as objects. And there's something about that connects us to the laughter that we then develop into art forms that also take this incongruity into account.
Wow. So there's a complete theory of laughter, which I might go along with, not sure. I think that the sort of smiling I was talking about is not, if you like, a byproduct of laughter, nor is it a premonition of laughter. It's an activity in its own right. You know, there are people, totally humorless people, who can smile in the sense that I was talking about it. Laughter is, I agree, it's a huge problem to understand quite what it is, and it clearly is something that we can do, and it's questionable whether animals do it, because do they have the concept of amusement? And is the concept of amusement, as you say, a matter of incongruity and so on? Those are deep questions. And I haven't got a ready-made answer to them. But there we are. All I wanted to say is that a smile is not simply a physiognomical distribution of patches of the face. That can be in existence even though there is no smile, because the smile is the subject coming forward into that face and making a gift of itself to the other.